And welcome to the 10 Count at Hollywood Smoke in the city of Santa Monica. I'm Steve Kim, joined by Michael Montero of Montero on Boxing and Doug Fischer, editor-in-chief of Ring TV. On the night of May 16th at the Forum, Gennady Golovkin scores his 20th middleweight KO, stopping Willie Monroe Jr. in 6 rounds. And Michael, you need to get this off your chest. This bothered you.
Right, yeah.
When the people said that Gennady Golovkin was quote unquote exposed and the formula was found and that he looked bad and that he's just ultra hittable against Monroe.
A hype job.
As Cool Mo D once said, that irked your nerve.
It did. In fact, I made a video about this, the growing hate for Triple G. Look for it on my channel.
Yes.
And you know, it's interesting, some of the responses from the Triple G haters, they're turning into talking points. It's becoming a political talk, like between a conservative and a liberal. It's almost as if now that Manny Pacquiao's been dismissed by Floyd Mayweather, some of those Floyd fans need a new guy to hate, and that's Triple G. Yeah. That's the pattern I'm starting to see. Look, he wasn't exposed, ladies and gentlemen. If you watch the first 2 rounds of that fight, Golovkin was doing everything he needed to do. He was given angles. He was being disciplined. He got right up on Monroe's right shoulder, drew him down by dipping his shoulder, and came over the top with the hook. And then the next few rounds, he played around a little bit. When he wanted to flip that switch, I think it was the 6th round, right? He flipped the switch, and he dropped him in 20 seconds, people.
Round.
Yeah, 5th round.
Basically, all this talk about the vulnerabilities of Triple G, it's 2 rounds where he decided to stay in the pocket and trade with a guy who he knew couldn't hurt him. It was 2 rounds, and you could maybe give 1 or 2 of those rounds to him. By the 5th round, he was repeatedly hurting Monroe and took him out in the 6th.
You know, I asked Ray Mancini, someone who does a lot of work with us here, I said, Ray, when you were in there with the fighter that knew could not hurt you with their punches, did you? He said, absolutely. Because I know, and he goes, I know you're talking about Golovkin Monroe. He said, there's no doubt. Listen, this is what I hate. When Mayweather gets hit by Maidana, he lets him get hit.
Yeah. He made it exciting for the fans. That was for the fans.
Because he's always for the fans.
Yeah.
Floyd loves the fans.
Floyd money.
Now, Golovkin speaks like 5 languages. So when he says, I let myself get hit, I think we got to take that with I think what he said was, or what he meant, that's my opinion, that I stood in the pocket and I took extra chances. And I've used this analogy before. If you're a football team that's going to send out 5 receivers and take 7-step drops, you're going to get hit. The way I look at it, Mike, for the style that he fights and his offensive philosophy, I think Golovkin, the way he tucks his chin in, keeps his hands up for the most part, I think he's about as sound defensively as you're going to be for that particular style.
Absolutely. And you know, he knew who he was fighting. Anyone out there who's ever sparred, I fought a little amateurs, I know how it feels to get hit. You know pretty soon, you know, after about a round or so, what you're in there with. He knew what he was in there with, so he let loose a little bit. But when he needed to tuck everything in and fight responsibly, he did. There was nothing being exposed except for Triple G hate. Obviously, when he steps up and eventually gets somebody like a Miguel Cotto or a Canelo Alvarez or maybe...
He won't fight the same.
He's not going to fight the same, people. He's not an idiot. When you have hundreds of amateur fights, this guy's been fighting forever. People forget. I think he's 33 years old. Yeah. He's a grown-ass man. He knows what he's doing in there.
And by the way, it wasn't a bad thing.
No, it was entertaining.
When he did get tagged and said, come on, man, try it again.
Doug, isn't that
it's for his crowd.
Entertaining.
Listen, he's becoming a real ticket seller here in Southern California. The Forum, that's the house that was built by Mexican fighters. Yeah. By Mexican fighters who bring the ruckus, like Ruben Olivares and Carlos Zarate, all the way to Marco and Bobby Chacon, to Marco Antonio Barrera, the Marquez brothers. This is, I mean, guys who have skill and technique, but also show some balls in the ring. That's not a bad thing to excite this crowd, because this is where he's really building a strong, dedicated fan base. And it's also not bad to look vulnerable. You might give some of these guys the balls to get up in there and fight them. Some guys with names.
Of the Mayweather era of boxing where nobody is supposed to get hit. And listen, if you want to see Derek Gainer, who never got hit, go ahead.
That's boxing.
Now that's boxing. Derek,
that's boring.
Shit about boxing.
Derek's secondhand smoke Gainer. If you want to see that, go ahead. Moving ahead to Gennady Golovkin's future, I think it's clear. One thing I know about Tom Loeffler, and I know him pretty well, he's a realist. And he's told me, he goes, Steve, no matter what a sanctioning body says, you can't mandate or force a guy to take a fight. Because a guy like Cotto can drop a belt, and economically it does not hurt him. Yeah. But I think it's clear that the reason why they were in New York this weekend to watch Cotto was is that if you're going to get ducked and avoided, you might as well get paid well for it. So would you disagree that right now that their goal is to get the BC belt somehow and they realize they may never get Cotto?
I think they know that. I think it's pretty clear. At this point, you know, they're just lining him up and knocking him down. And for Team Golovkin, you know, I think he's the best bargain in boxing right now. And not just for the fans, but for the event, for the network. Everybody eats, everybody, the vendors, right? I mean, at the Forum in Inglewood, the vendors did great.
Yeah.
So for what you're paying, what you're getting, just keep doing what you're doing. Eventually, the big names will come up. I mean, you look, B-Hop did it. Marvin Hagler did it, right? Their big name fights were against welterweights that came up.
But Doug, how come, and we've mentioned this before, Hagler and Bernard, as much as I love them, I think they're two top 5 middleweights. Their middleweight runs, especially the first 10 fights, their defenses were not particularly strong. A lot of Bo James, Hard Rock Green.
They didn't have any name fighters or big events until the stars of the lighter weight division stepped up to fight.
Then why isn't Golovkin given that same type of leeway?
I'm not going to go there.
I'll go there. I think there's some racism.
Uh-oh, you said it.
I can say it.
You did.
A lot of you Triple G haters out there are just plain racist.
Well, look,
they ain't the right color.
Are they
the right color for you? I'll say it. And it's transparent.
Are they TMT?
Mostly, yeah, about 90%.
That's the moron.
But you know what? Here's the thing I'll say about you know the level of opposition that Golovkin is fighting. Yeah, they're not great fighters that he's been in with. I mean, when Daniel Gill is like the highest rated guy that you fought, that's not saying a lot. But the thing is, he's building his name in this country.
Yeah.
He made his U.S. debut, his HBO debut in September of 2012. He's had a really fast climb, and now he's really starting to become an attraction. And the one image that I take away from that fight with Monroe was not just the action in the ring. It was, and it wasn't just the crowd's adulation, because I expected that. It was the reaction from the boxing media, guys from Las Vegas who had never covered a Triple G fight in the greater Los Angeles area. There's a guy from the Las Vegas Journal-Review. Is it Steve
Karp?
Karp. Yeah. Steve Karp, nice guy. Vegas guy. Obviously, he's covered a lot of big fights in Vegas. But his eyes, when Golovkin came out into that arena and the crowd exploded, and during the fight and the crowd's reaction, and the crowd's reaction after the fight, even during the post-fight press conference, which was in the ring, it was like this was a new experience for him. It reminded me of like maybe sort of a casual hip-hop fan in the late 80s, early 90s, who had only been to MC Hammer and Vanilla Ice concerts, suddenly going to a Wu-Tang Clan concert and like an intimate venue, just like, well, this is different, you know.
Well, it's an old school approach.
This is hip hop. This is some interesting rap here. I think I like this. But he was like, he was sitting in front of me, and he turns back and he's like, man, did you feel that? And I'm like, yeah, kind of different than Mayweather-Pacquiao.
Yeah, the visual of Steve Karp at a Wu-Tang Clan concert. But anyway, that's the throwback from this whole segment, the TMT, the moron team. So anyway, on behalf of Doug Fischer and Michael Montero, this is Steve Kim saying thank you for joining the 10 Count. Till the next round, goodbye, everybody.